The champagne was expensive. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and lies. It was Elena's 35th birthday. I leaned in, the dutiful husband, to press a kiss against her cheek in front of the gathered crowd. It was a practiced motion, expected. She flinched. It wasn't a small movement. It was a visceral recoil, her body turning rigid as if my touch were caustic. Her eyes weren't on me. They were anchored to the foyer, where a man had just entered. Julian, the ghost she claimed had been exorcised years ago. The room went silent. The rejection hung in the air, a physical weight. "Not now, Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling with a hunger she never showed me. She didn't just pull away, she discarded me. In that second, the curated image of our marriage shattered. I saw the truth in the way her pulse thrummed against her throat. I wasn't her partner, I was her placeholder. The days that followed were a study in silence. Elena was tired, she was stressed. I watched her through the lens of a predator. I noticed the way she gripped her phone, the way she took calls in the garden, her voice dropping to a rhythmic, melodic hum I hadn't heard in a decade. She thought I was blinded by the humiliation of the party. She assumed my ego was too bruised to see clearly. She was wrong. My ego was dead, only my intellect remained. I found the burner phone in her vanity, tucked behind a false panel. No passcodes. She was arrogant. The messages weren't just romantic, they were chronological. They didn't start at the party, they started 3 years ago. The timeline didn't just suggest infidelity, it suggested a blueprint. Every vacation we took, every business trip she made, it was all choreographed. But the final message was the scalpel that cut deepest. He still doesn't know about the trust fund. Once the transfer clears on the 30th, we're gone. I didn't scream, I didn't break the furniture. I sat in my office and opened my laptop. I am a man of data. I began the harvest. I tracked the offshore transfers. I mapped the dates of her late nights against Julian's travel records. It was a perfect synchronization, a masterpiece of deception. I spent 2 weeks being the perfect grieving husband. I cooked dinner. I listened to her lies about her day. I even apologized for smothering her at the party. "It's okay, Mark," she said, petting my hand with a pity that made my skin crawl. "We're fine." Inside, I was a machine. I was rerouting the digital veins of our shared life. I contacted my attorney. I didn't ask for a divorce. I asked for an extraction. The 30th was approaching, the day she expected to vanish with my legacy. The morning of the 30th was gray, quiet. Elena was packing a weekend bag for a spa retreat. Her hands were shaking with excitement. I sat at the kitchen table with a single manila envelope. "You're leaving early," I remarked. "Traffic," she lied, not looking up. "You should check your accounts first," I said. My voice was a flat line. She paused, a frown marring her perfect face. She pulled out her phone. I watched the blood drain from her lips. The color didn't just fade, it vanished. "What is this? The balance it's 0. "The trust was moved," I said softly, "into a locked account in my name. The signatures you forged over the last year, I flagged them as fraudulent this morning. The bank is opening a criminal investigation into Julian." She dropped the phone. It clattered on the marble. "Mark, I can explain." "I don't need an explanation," I interrupted. "I have the logs, I have the photos, I have the receipts for the apartment you rented in his name." She broke. It was a pathetic display. Tears, gasping breaths, reaching for my hands. She fell to her knees, the same knees she'd used to crawl back to him. "I love you," she sobbed. "He manipulated me. I was scared." I stood up, stepping back so she couldn't touch my shoes. I felt nothing, no heat, no rage, just the cold satisfaction of a completed calculation. "You weren't scared at the party," I said. "You were hopeful. You thought you were finally done with me." I slid a second paper across the table. It was a restraining order and an eviction notice. "Julian isn't coming for you," I whispered. "I sent him the evidence that you were planning to skim off his side of the accounts, too. He's already halfway to the border alone." The look of utter, singular betrayal on her face was better than any kiss. I walked out the front door without a coat. The air was sharp and biting, but for the first time in years I could breathe. The house behind me held a woman who had lost everything, not because of fate, but because of her own reflection. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. She had tried to erase me. Instead, I had simply unmade her. I got into the car and turned the key. The engine hummed, a steady, loyal sound. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was an architect of my own silence. The debt was paid, and I was finally, chillingly, alone.